Which of the teams that were not bowl eligible do you think, is there one in particular you think will absolutely rocket back into the race this year?
I've got 3 teams actually that I think could be bowl eligible teams that were not last year. But let me first say on the Baylor Kansas side, there were some weird Baylor Kansas things last year. So Baylor lost to BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State. Those are 3 teams that Kansas beat consecutively. They're the first team ever to not be a top 25 team and knock off 3 consecutive top 25 teams. So it was funny. Baylor lost to those 3 teams. Kansas knocked those 3 teams off, and then Baylor absolutely laid the tar to Kansas and just completely dominated them on the ground. I mean, it was unbelievable what Baylor did in that game. So just a weird situation last year where Baylor lost those 3 games, Kansas won those 3 games, and then obviously it was decided in the field the last week of the season, which held Kansas out of being bowl eligible. But I do think Kansas returns to bowl eligibility this year. They lose a ton, but I think their offensive line is still going to be very good. Jalen Daniels is back quarterback, and even though he's had some injury issues, I think Isaiah Marshall behind him, who was a high 3-star recruit coming in last year out of Detroit, he's got a very similar skill set to Jalen Daniels. So I think they're way better positioned to potentially lose Daniels if that is the case this year. I like Utah as a team. Like, what's funny is I thought Utah was going to be kind of underrated coming into the season, and reading some Phil Steele, reading some other magazines and publications and stuff, they're almost now overrated. Now, I do think they return to a bowl game. They're just too good up front on offense. And like, their offense was so bad last year. So bad. The fact that the defense didn't completely check out says a lot about their defense, their defensive makeup. So like, I don't know how much better they're going to be on offense, but they're going to be better on offense. And so based on having Devin Dampier, based on having a robust rushing attack, like, I absolutely think Utah should be a bowl team this year. And then I think Cincinnati as well. And look, Scott Satterfield probably needs it in order to keep his job. You know, with Brendan Sorsby coming back, there was a weird dynamic, and I'm excited to ask Satterfield about this. Like, Sorsby, the way he finished the season, he wanted to run the ball a lot more than earlier on in the season. I wonder if there was an injury or something he was dealing with, because he became much more of a rushing threat quarterback, and he didn't want to throw as much. And I thought that hampered the Cincinnati offense. They're really good to me across their offensive line, and then they're really good off their defensive line too, with Dante Corleone, probably the most underrated player in college football, coming back to man their defensive line. So I think they've got a ton of talent. Joe Royer at tight end broke Travis Kelce's single season receptions record for a tight end last season. I think, he's in line to have a really good season this year. So I think Cincinnati be the 3rd team I think could be a bowl team this year.